Hey everyone, it's Evie and I'm going to be showing you guys how I did today's look. So I'm starting off by applying Smolder by MAC on the outer edges of the eye. This is going to act as an eyeshadow primer for those darker shades, so that way when I layer color on top, it's really going to intensify it. Once that black pencil is laid down, I'm going in with the Dose of Colors Cutting Edge palette, and the first shade I'm using is Cameo, which is the darkest green. I'm using this with a pencil brush to blend out those outer edges. This is just going to buff out that outer edge so it's not as difficult to blend once I move over to a fluffy brush. Now it's time to move over to a fluffy eyeshadow blending brush. I am using this shade, oh my god, sorry guys, I can't remember, Rusty Brown, just to kind of buff out and give me that perfect transition that I'm looking for. There is a lot of layering when it comes to this look, you guys. For me, that perfect blend requires patience, blending with different size brushes. Trust me, you are gonna get a look that is perfectly seamless in the end. I also went ahead and picked up the shade Khaki, so I'm just kind of mixing these together. Khaki has more of that yellow green, so by me going in with something lighter, I'm creating a really nice gradient effect. And if you notice, when I blend, I'm doing more of a circular motion as opposed to like a back and forth windshield wiper. Now with a teeny tiny blending brush, I'm using the shade Cameo from the palette, which is the darkest one, and I'm just applying this to the outer corners in circular motion. This is going to give me any depth that I may have lost when I was layering shadows. Very important, whenever you go back in with a darker color to just kind of bring that depth back, do not go past your transition. Remember, you want to keep that nice gradient effect, so try to keep that depth lower towards the lash line. And I was not playing, you guys, when I said that I like to layer my blend. But here what I'm just doing is a final, I call this like the eraser blend. I just use a fluffy, clean brush, nothing on it, and I just go through the eyeshadow, mainly around the highest point to just kind of smooth out any edges that I might still have. Since I'm planning on doing a little cut crease, I really take this time to make sure that my blend is perfected, because once you lay down that concealer to cut the crease, it's kind of difficult to go back in. You might end up kind of like ruining the edges of the cut that you created, so take this opportunity to perfect your blend before you cut the crease. So now we're going to cut the crease. I'm using a flat brush, and I'm also using the Glam Light Icing Base in the shade Vanilla. And whenever I cut a crease, I always like to start applying product towards the lash line first. Also, always to the inner corner, since that's the area that's really going to open the eye. By starting low, you're just making sure that you're shaping out the eye instead of starting high and then going too high. Remember, it's always easier to add than to take away. Once I've perfected cutting the inner part of the eye, I'm going to start bringing my way towards the outer half, but I'm still kind of only stopping at the center. I never actually bring the concealer all the way to the outer end, because then we would be covering everything we did. So always keep that in mind. You want to keep that outer edge clean with shadow only, so that way you have that depth. And I'm just going in with our teeny tiny blending brush and the darkest shade in the eyeshadow palette, Cameo, and I'm just going back and forth to smooth out my transition between the eyeshadow and the eyeshadow primer. And I'm sorry you guys, I keep saying concealer, I said that in my last clip, but I mean eyeshadow primer. I'm not using concealer to cut the crease. And now that that crease is cut, I'm going in with the shade Rule Breaker, which is a beautiful dark olive green shimmer. And I'm mainly focusing the shadow on the outer end and the center, because we're going to use a lighter color on the inner corner. So only keep those darker shimmers in the center, so that way you have that nice gradient effect, because if I put it all over, it would just be a smoky eye. Speaking of inner corner shimmers, here I am using the shade Top It Off from the same palette, and we're just tapping that all the way in, making sure that we get really close to that edge. So my model Stephanie already has a beautiful eye shape, but by me just applying this lighter shade in the center, it's going to really open it up. And with a teeny blending brush, I'm just going back and forth in between those shimmers to make sure that there's no lines in between. And now it is time for eyeliner. I am using a super precise eyeliner brush from Hobby Lobby, and I'm using the Italia Black Liquid Eyeliner. And we are going for it. We are giving her a cute, semi-bold, but very noticeable wing, just to really add that drama to the outer end on the eye. Oh, what it took me to not just give her an Amy Winehouse wing, because you guys, if you follow me on TikTok, you see how I do my own eyeliner, and I like to go dramatic. But today we're keeping her just a little more subtle. Alright, let's jump into the face. So I'm going in with the Glow Recipe Watermelon Dew Drops. I already prepped her skin prior to the eyes, but I always like to go back in with a serum, so that way when I lay down foundation, everything is perfectly smooth. For foundation, we're using NARS Sheer Glow, and I'm using the shade Barcelona. I'm using a Morphe brush. It's a foundation brush that I am currently obsessed with. And I'm just packing that foundation into the skin with this flat brush until I get the coverage that I want. And yes, we are going for full coverage. Now it's time for concealer. I'm using Tarte Shape Tape in the shade Light Sand. Also making sure to apply that concealer on the center of the face, since this is also a brightener. So I like to use Tarte Shape Tape, specifically Light Sand, on medium skin tones for a brightener / concealer. And once that concealer is laid down, I'm going in with a synthetic flat brush and I'm just patting that concealer down. However, if you notice, I'm only patting down in those areas. There's a big difference between patting down and blending around, okay? So remember that. If we blend this product around, we're gonna turn her whole face a different color. So instead, you're just gonna pat in those areas to keep that light right where we placed it. Let's jump into a little cream bronzer. I am using Fenty's Teddy Cream Bronzer, one of my favorites. I will say it a million times. This is a cream bronzer that just adds the perfect amount of warmth, you know, depending on which shade you're using, of course. But also, it just blends in so buttery. I don't find that it gets patchy. So far, it blends really nice on top of just about every foundation that I've used. But specifically against NARS, it is a dream. And with that same Teddy bronzer by Fenty, I'm just applying it onto the sides of the nose. And to blend out that cream bronzer on the sides of the nose, I'm just using a small synthetic eyeshadow blending brush. We want to blend out those lines, but we want to keep the shape. So remember, don't over blend, because then you're going to turn the nose a whole different color. Keep that shape there, you know, we just don't want harsh lines. Alright guys, so we are almost done with this gorgeous makeup. We're just patting down under the eyes before we set with powder. And the powder that I'm going to be using is the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Finish Setting Powder. That's a lot to say. I'm using the shade number 2 under Stephanie's eyes. As you can see, I'm just patting this into the under eyes before I apply it all over the face. I always start with the under eyes first because that's the area that creases first. Once those under eyes are set, I'm using a fluffier brush to apply the same Charlotte Tilbury powder all over the face to get that nice soft matte appearance. And now it's time to deepen up our bronzer. I'm using Fenty Powder Bronzer in the shade Caramel Cutie. And lately I've been using a fan brush for this because it allows me to really shape out without over applying. And I'm really focusing that bronzer nice and high up on the cheekbones. Now it's time to go in with a little brightening powder. I am using Dermablend Translucent Powder. So most of the time I would do this with a powder puff, but today I decided to use a brush. Honestly, I really like the finish. It created a really nice soft finish without over drying the face or creating that dry appearance. I'm also applying that against the jawline underneath the contour. Alright you guys, so I've had this powder sitting on her face for about 3 to 5 minutes and now I'm dusting it off. I really don't like to leave it on for too long. It's really just to brighten, not really to change too much of the texture. And now it's time for blush. I am using a super fluffy tapered blending brush on the face and I'm using Van Eyck blushes. I mixed about 4 shades, so I'm sorry I can't give you guys an exact shade, but I can tell you the palette that I use. It is called the Rouge Runway palette. Alright, and this look is coming together. We are now on eyelashes. I am using some bomb AF eyelashes that I got from Amazon. A little bit of black liner in the waterline, and of course smudging it out with the same shadows that we used on top. And of course going back in with a little liner above the lashes to remove, or not really remove, but cover any glue. And now, for my favorite part in any makeup that I do, it's time for lips. I'm just using Chestnut by MAC all along the outer edges of her lips. And once her lips are lined, we're also going to bring this onto the inner part of the lip, so that way when I apply whatever lip shade I use, it just blends into that liner perfectly. Now it's time for our lip color. We are using the shade Let's Cuddle by Dose of Colors, one of my favorite nudes to use, you guys. I use Let's Cuddle on myself. I use it on all skin tones, on the center of an ombre lip with a darker lip liner. If you have never used Dose of Colors liquid lipsticks, I am gonna confidently tell you, I can't even talk, that you're missing out. As you can see, I am just passionate about their liquid lipsticks because they are some of the best I've ever tried. To finish off the lips, I'm using the shade Flashy by, you guessed it, Dose of Colors. This is a beautiful gold gloss that's just gonna marry those lip colors underneath together. Look how stunning this lip is. I'm truly obsessed. Touching up a little nose contour, but this is it, you guys. This is the finished look. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok under Wild Moon Artist. Bye everyone.